Power BI desktop, we can create our first visualizations. But before we do that, it would be useful to see just what we're going to be doing in part 1 of this course. What you're seeing on screen are the broad categories of the requirements for the PO300 exam. And you can see there are 4 sections: prepare the data, model the data, visualize and analyze the data, and deploy and maintain assets. In part 1 of this course, we'll be largely looking at visualize and analyze the data section. So we'll be looking at creating reports, enhancing reports for usability and storytelling, and identify patterns and trends. There's also a minor bit from clean, transform, and load the data. We'll be looking at anomaly detection, and a little bit about developing a data model. We'll be creating hierarchies, using the question and answer feature, and using quick measures. What we're going to do is create our first visualization. We are going to go through some of the steps which are needed for Power BI. What we're going to do is get the data. We're not then going to do much with the data, and we're going to create our visualizations. So those are the 3 steps you can use: getting the data, transforming it, and then creating your visualization. So first of all, I'm going to get the data. So in the Home tab, we have a Get Data. And you can see that we have got an enormous array of various sources. It doesn't look enormous, but when you click on the more ... you'll see how extensive all of these resources are. So what I'm going to use is an Excel spreadsheet which is included in the resources which were in an earlier lecture, an earlier article that you could have downloaded. So if you haven't downloaded them, please do so. So I'm going to click on Excel, and I'm going to go to my resources, and it's this. I'm going to open it, and you'll see there's a connection, and a new window appears. It says, okay, you've got this spreadsheet, but there are a lot of tables. And if you've got any named regions set up, they will also be shown. So the table that I'm going to use is the HPI admins. What this table is, it's the house price index for certain regions in England. So what the average selling price is and that sort of thing. So I'll click on it, I'll just check this box, and you can see a preview of the data. So just to give you an idea, we have the date. This date is being shown in American format, so we've got January 1995, February 1995, and so forth. We have the region name. There are 6 different region names, and we've got the average price, and further along, we have got the sales volume, the number of units sold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Load. You could edit it. That will take us into another dialog box, which we'll have a look at much later. Because at the moment, I want to concentrate on actually creating visualizations from your existing data. Now, it doesn't look like much has happened, except it has. On the right-hand side, we've got this Fields pane. Now, you might not see the Fields pane, perhaps. It might be hidden away. If it is, just click on this little arrow to show it. And what this does is show us all of the fields, all of the columns in the spreadsheet. So if I were to open up that spreadsheet directly, you would see all of these columns which have been replicated, except it's in alphabetical order instead of the order that we have it in the spreadsheet. Now there's a little symbol next to some of these. It's called a sigma. That's the Greek letter sigma. And if you've used Excel, you may recognize the sigma as the summing. So what this sigma is telling you is that the computer thinks that this is a number which can be totaled together. Similarly, if it doesn't have the sigma sign, it thinks it isn't. So it might be a date, or it might be some text. So what I'm going to do is create a visualization which shows how many properties were sold in each region. So I have region name, so I'll just check it. And you can see instantly what happens. We have region name, and then these 6 different regions. And I'm going to add to that the sales volume, so I'll just check that as well. Now, if you're using the latest version of Power BI, you might see that the visualization has changed from a table into a bar chart. Now, if you see this, then for the purposes of this video, make sure that the visualization is selected, that there are these 8 circles around it. Let's go to Home, and in Insert, click on Table. And if this doesn't work for you, then click on this build a visual icon, and under visual types, click the drop down and change it to table. Now, if you're wondering about this build a visual icon, maybe you don't have it in your version, don't worry, we're going to be looking at differences between various versions of Power BI Desktop in the next video. And here you can see the totality. So in Greater Manchester, 932,000 units were sold. Now we could add additional fields. For instance, maybe I wanted the area code. I'll just check that in as well. And you can see that gets added. Or maybe I want the total average price heading or something like that. Whatever you want to do, just check the box and it gets added. Now, it's not exactly appealing at the moment. It's a fine calculation. It gives me the right answer, 3,795,000 sales volume, but it's not that well presented. And if there's nothing that Power BI is about in the visualization, it's creating good visualizations, being well presented. And we'll have a look at how to format this table in the next section. In the next video, we're going to have a look around Power BI Desktop and see some differences between two commonly used versions. We're going to have a look around at the Power BI Desktop report section. First of all, we've got a ribbon at the top, which has lots of different menus. First of all, on the left-hand side, you've got File, so you can save and load reports, but also publish to the web. The Home tab allows you to get more data, to edit the queries, and to manipulate the data by adding extra measures. In the Insert menu, we can insert new pages, visuals including artificial intelligence or AI visuals, elements from other parts of the Power Platform, Power Apps and Power Automate, and additional things such as buttons, shapes and spark lines. In the Modeling tab, we can expand the data that we've got with new measures, columns and tables. In View, there are a number of things that might be useful here. You can change the theme, the page view. You've also got the ability to show grid lines, and you can show various panes on the right-hand side, such as Data, Format, and Filter. You can zoom in and out as well, and you can fit to the page. We'll have a look at the Optimize menu, which was introduced in May 2023 in part 3 of this course, and then there is Help, which gives links to videos and blogs, for example. Now, on the right-hand side, we've got various panes. So some of the panes can be collapsible. If I click on this double right chevron, I can collapse and expand the filters pane, for instance. However, we can also view various panes by going to View. So I could hide the filters completely by clicking on Filters or show them again. Now, additional menus in green with a white background are also shown depending on what you click on. So if you're clicking on a visualization, then you'll see the Format and Data Drill menus. If I click on a field, then I will also see Table Tools and Column Tools. So depending on what you click on, you may see additional menus. We'll be looking at those additional menus later on in this part of the course. Now, additionally, if you can't see all of these icons, then you may have clicked this button. If that happens, then you may be seeing a different view here. This is a different ribbon, and may be good if you're using a laptop. So you can switch between the ribbons by clicking on this button here. Now, depending what version of Power BI you're using, your display might look a bit different. You might have a pane called Fields instead of Data, and you might have another one called Visualizations. If this is the case, then you are not using something that Microsoft calls on-object interactions. And you can switch this on if you're using a Power BI Desktop from March 2023 onwards by going to File, Options and Settings, Options, and on the left-hand side we've got Preview Features, and we've got On-Object Interaction. So if you are seeing the Visualizations pane, then you should check this and restart Power BI to use the latest methods of interacting with visualizations. Now, if you can't see a visualizations pane, that's because you're using this on-object interaction, and its replacement is this Build Your Visual button. Now, if you can't see this button, it's because you don't have any visuals selected. So if I click somewhere away from the visual, you can see no visuals are selected. There's no Build Your Visual button shown. However, if I click inside the visual, then we can see we've got these 8 circular frame handles, and we've got this button. We may have other buttons depending on the type of visualization. So if I click on this button, here you'll see exactly what we've got in the previous visualization pane, and you'll be able to add fields from your data into this. Now personally, I like to have a visualization pane, and if you like to have it as well, then you should click on this arrow next to Build a Visual and click Move to Pane Switcher, and that will put it on the right hand side. Some versions of Power BI may not have this drop down arrow. If that's the case, then instead go to View, Build to put the icon on the right hand side as well. So here you can now see Build a Visual. But what's happened to our data pane? It's still there, but it's now here in this pane switcher. So this allows me to maximize the amount of space that I've got for the visuals while still being able to go between, for example, Build a Visual and data and back. Now personally, I prefer to have both the Build a Visual, or as I like to call it, the visualization pane on the screen, as well as the data or fields pane at the same time. So what I'm going to do is right and click on Build a Visual and say Open in New Pane. So now I've got Build a Visual, or the visualization pane, and the data or the fields pane on screen at the same time. And I find that a lot easier. Another way of showing these icons in most versions of Power BI is going to the icon and either just clicking on it or holding down Control and clicking on it to show or hide that pane as well. You can also click on this plus symbol to customize the pane switcher, so you'll be able to switch on individual panes. This just shows what we've got up here in the view menu, but also describes what each pane does in a more user-friendly format. So I'll just go back to the data pane, hold down Control, and click on Build a Visual to show both of these panes again. In addition, I always like to have this pane switcher being shown, and I can enable this by going to View, Pane Switcher, and check Always Show Pane Switcher. So now even if I click away from that visualization to the empty page, I still have my icons shown. And then when I click back to a visualization, I can then see my visualization pane, and I can right click on data and say Open in New Pane. If you find you want the Build a Visual or visualization pane to go back to the visual, then you can right and click on the Build a Visual button and select Move to Visual. There's also the options for Collapse, which removes the pane but leaves the icon, and Close, which removes the icon as well. So for a lot of this part 1, I'm going to have the Build a Visual or visualization pane shown as panes, because I like to be able to drag from data to Build a Visual more easily. It also resembles the previous version, so if you're used to the previous version, then it's easier to get used to this new on-object interaction. So this is the Power BI desktop and the report view. In the next video, we're going to have a brief look at the model view and also have a look at the data view, where we can examine the data that we have imported into Power BI desktop.